Welcome back to Invest Global. Today we continue on with our coverage of Prospera in Honduras. Now, this is an incredible project in my personal opinion. I have, since the original video that I recorded in Istanbul, Turkey, actually spoke with one of the top members of the team and really enjoyed all the things they were talking about from the legal framework, from real estate, and I'm planning on visiting there once it gets a little bit more cold here in Europe. I'm currently here in Krakow, Poland, but let's actually head over to Roatan. And Roatan's a small island kind of on the coast of Honduras. So keep this in mind. I think the majority, from what I understood from the call, obviously Prospera is not this whole island, right? They're slowly growing from this, and if I remember correctly, they're building here in the West Bay. Now, I may be incorrect on that. Like I said, I will definitely do more video coverage when I'm actually boots on the ground there. That's what I personally prefer when I'm in a market, wherever I'm at. I typically tour real estate and different things like this, and as the channel grows, I'll do more videos actually of me touring these properties, right? Because it is a bit hard to find a good videographer in each market that I'm in, and the time allocation, all these different things, since I'm pretty much meeting with lawyers, meeting with bankers, investors, business owners in the given market. But the point here is basically Prospera is focused on building off this ZELE Act. Okay, so this, I'm not going to get too far into detail with the actual legal framework here, but the ZELE Act in Honduras essentially allows you to build these economic free zones, and Prospera is focused on doing this. I think it's absolutely incredible. It brings more economic activity to overall Hondurans in general, which is awesome. They're actually, one article that we're going to be touching on today and be focusing on is they're creating, I think it's like over 1,300 jobs with building all these different things there. It's really a win-win situation for Prospera and what they're building, along with the Honduran people, right? And technically the governments as well, because they do have this housing shortage. One thing I do want to cover before this, so that's basically just an overview of this. There'll also be timestamps down below, so you can skip ahead or zoom back if you're interested, is here. So I always like to track global macro indicators whenever I'm investing in a market. For example, here in Poland, I think there's a lot of interesting equities, and I've gotten to participate in some interesting companies here, just because, when you're looking at price to earnings ratios, I think Poland's one of the best markets in Europe, personally. So especially if you're looking at all the economic growth, and that's the topic for another video. So anyways, Honduras here. You see they have a GDP of 23 billion people, and relative in South America, actually incredibly low inflation rates. Now, I know you might be saying 5% inflation. What the heck? Well, guess what? Just take a look at Argentina is a great example. 50% inflation rate. You have to look at all these things. Yes, Argentina has a little bit lower unemployment rates, but there's different problems for different countries going on currently. When you look at something like South America, horrible unemployment rates. Similar with Bosnia, I absolutely love Bosnia. I did some skiing there in Yaharina just a little bit ago. And, this beautiful Olympic, they actually held the Olympics there, I think in the 90s or the 80s. But the point is I think there's a lot of upside in Honduras. And, when you're investing in a market and everything's, if all these things were green, you're probably going to be investing at the top of the market. The more emerging market opportunities that I personally talk about on this channel, whether it comes to, investing in a place like a continent like Africa, whether it's Eastern Europe, the area that I'm currently kind of exploring, Southeast Asia, the Middle East, wherever it is. You really want to look for, okay, what is a bit more of like a crisis investing opportunity where essentially you're getting in while other people are scared. You ask your whoever, especially if you're in the United States or in Canada or in the UK or in Australia, you ask, your friends, hey, would you be interested in purchasing real estate in Honduras, right? So you ask them or hey, would you invest in the Iranian stock market? Honestly, Iran is an incredible stock market, in my opinion. These are the opportunities where there's a perception gap in the market. And I do think there's opportunity in Honduras, especially when Prospera is there and they built this kind of a framework around this legal structure where you can actually set up a lot of things that we talk about on this channel, whether it comes to second passports, residency, setting up a business. You can actually do these things, and not necessarily a passport in this case, but you can actually become an e-resident. You can set up a business without actually physically having to be there. Now, I do recommend, if you get the chance, definitely visit there. Like I said, I will probably be traveling there for, probably when it gets a little bit more cold here in Europe. Typically, I don't want to be in a place when it's snowing, just because just with travel and all these different things, it makes it a little bit less location independent, right? You're kind of stuck down a little bit. Snow kind of complicates things. But so the point here is they're building this incredible platform. You can you can do all these different things with this Prospera platform. So they have all these things laid out. I really love how transparent and open source this is. So it's very simple, right? Go on any other website where you're interested in setting up an entity or becoming an e-resident, way overcomplicated. This breaks it down really, really nicely, and I really love the user interface here as well, and kind of how they built this out. So people, whether they're someone who's made a lot of money online, whether they're someone who's an investor, or a combination of those two, which is a lot of the people that watch this channel, I think this is interesting to look at. I also like how they have this laid out perfectly, so you can see the number of compliance steps. Just all this bureaucracy, especially in the United States and even in a lot of these countries where there shouldn't be bureaucracy, but yet there is. Prospera cuts through all that. Hey, one-time compliance days, 3 compliance steps, super, super simple, and then you have the Prospera ZA. So if I remember correctly, that I might not be pronouncing it right, but the ZA Act is kind of what I was talking about, where they're essentially able to build this kind of economic free zone, if you will. So the comparison here again, as far as it comes to the permit type here, so you can see that I'm complying with regulations. Very, very simple. They have it all very, very transparent. Obviously, you want to consult a lawyer, and I would highly recommend contacting someone from the actual Prospera team. This is not a sponsored video. I just love what they're building here. Like I said, typically what I do on this channel is talk about what interesting investment opportunities, but also, kind of freedom things like second passports and residencies, and setting up businesses, offshore bank accounts, all these different things. And, I'll have people contact me. I do some consulting. That's why I have that email down below in the description, which is contact@investglobal.io. And with this, I have people reaching out, hey, I want to set up a business in Georgia. I want to set up a business in wherever it is, like Montenegro, but I can't go there, right? So that's a big problem. If you can't actually physically be in a lot of these places, it's way, way more complicated. But Prospera has a setup where, hey, you can literally do this online. Very, very simple. Again, I think it's preferable to actually go there and see what they're building, because there is a lot of opportunity. So that was just kind of a basic overview. But I think this article really lays out what I was talking about at the beginning of this video well, how they've teamed up with Apollo Group. And they've really been innovating. I love this. They're focused on building these incredible kind of future forward buildings, right? So actually where I'm staying here in Poland is beautiful. Like I absolutely love it. There's this rooftop, there's a beautiful jacuzzi, there's pool tables, ping pong tables, beautiful view. There's a full gym, sauna, all these incredible things. Beautiful working space. You can rent an office, all these incredible things. And I think this movement towards, I guess you could call it like smart home, smart living type things in different markets around the world are very, very beneficial for someone like me or someone else who's traveling. And, there's not a lot of people that are traveling and investing necessarily, but people that are, they call them like digital nomads or whatever. And they're, traveling around. They want something comfortable to stay at, kind of set up base and get some work done. Places like this are awesome. That's why I love what they're doing here. There's not a ton of these in South America, especially when you're looking at like Honduras, Nicaragua, places like this. But I love it. I love it. I love it. So like I said, they're focused on building these, I think it's 250 units. This will have 300 direct jobs and around 1,000 indirect jobs in the process. Apollo Group said it would shortly announce the process for Roatan residents to apply for the construction and other jobs created by the project. So again, guys, keep in mind, this is a relatively new project. So Prospera is new in the grand scheme of things, right? When you're looking at, okay, new countries being formed, which Prospera is not technically a new country, it's an economic zone. When you're looking at this in the grand scheme of things, you got to zoom out. One of my favorite quotes is, humans focus much too much on the past 24 hours and not enough on the past 10,000 years. So when you're looking like, hey, why isn't Prospera doing all these new things? Why aren't they innovating at like a crypto project would, or a blockchain project would, or a company would? Well, guess what? It's a lot more, they have a lot more bureaucracy to deal with when you're literally setting this up, in the physical world. A blockchain project, somebody can pop up a website, someone can pop up a decentralized application very, very quickly. But when you're looking at physical, like building, being a developer, all these different things, it's a lot more complicated, especially if you've not gone through that process. Luckily, I grew up in Iowa in the United States, and I worked on some construction projects and, building homes and things like this. And you kind of understand the ins and outs of it a bit. And especially when you're working in an emerging market like Roatan on Honduras, things are a bit more complicated, right? You have to go through all these kind of hoops to jump through. But once you have this kind of ecosystem set up, then you can really, really build and innovate on that. And that's why I'm excited to track this project, over the next 5 to 10 years. I don't think anything, they're not going to save the world overnight, right? That's frankly the matter, but it's great to see people actually building in the right direction, in my personal opinion. I'm curious what you guys think about Prospera in general. I just wanted to make this quick little update video, show you guys kind of my quick thoughts on it, especially after talking with the team. I do really, really like what they're building, and I am planning to visit there. So if you have any questions, any comments, again, you can either let me know down below in the comment section. You can follow Prospera on all of their socials here. Also, One thing I do have to say is YouTube's been kind of weird with the comments lately. You know, if some like creators who respond to their people asking questions, like me, for example, if I respond to you, sometimes randomly my response gets deleted. So join the Telegram group, link down below in the description. You can also follow us on Twitter at investglobal_io. All these things are linked down below in the description. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, anything like that, feel free to reach out. Also, I highly recommend, just hopping on a call and talking with someone from the team. Very, very simple, especially if you're looking to set up like a second business, or at least an entity in another country. It can still be the same business, but yeah, overall, very, very interesting as far as that goes. You can see that the paying taxes section here is very, very simple. That 7.5%. Obviously, there's a bit more complications with this. Consult your lawyers, especially if you are working with a large sum of money. But my recommendation is anyone who's young and you're starting these things, it's better to, what's the quote? It's like something like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? So you have to be proactive with these things versus being reactive. When you're reactive and you're scrambling, you're trying to get your offshore bank account set up, you're trying to get your residencies, passports set up, hey, it's too late, right? So you should set these things up early in your life so you have this optionality moving forward. You have these things in place, and then you can be more safe, more secure, and kind of more confident to go out and do business internationally. All of these things we talk about on this channel. As always, if you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, button all, invest global, and until next time.